Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Auto Grade Podcast. Today, I'm your host, Daniel Lugo, and today I have the pleasure and the blessing of having here an amazing guest, and I think she's gonna bring a lot to the table. Her name is Jenny C. Cohen, and I think she's gonna bring a lot of things to the table. So please take out your notebooks. There's gonna be a lot of things to learn from this episode. So please, Jenny, can you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Hi. First of all, Daniel, thank you for having me. Everyone, it's such a pleasure to be here. I help people come back into their bodies after life takes you out of your body. I'm a mom and a wife and a dancer and a performer and a teacher and a student and a coach.
That's a lot of things. And so from what I hear, you talk to many people about how they can come back to their bodies. But what is that one experience that you say that you were at rock bottom?
Okay, there actually were several, and I will have to make sure that everyone understands that in your life, I'm 57 now. And in your life, you often will hit lots of rock bottoms. There are lessons to be learned from them, and sometimes you hit rock bottoms because they're patterns we didn't know we were replaying over and over in our lives. And sometimes the rock bottoms are just that you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. So you have to start to learn as you experience more of life which one it is. For me, one of my rock bottoms was in the middle of my chemotherapy when I was in this middle of 16 cycles and I hit about 10. And what people don't tell you, reality of doing chemotherapy is that they're injecting poison into your body and hoping most of it will go after your cancer cells. The chemotherapy doesn't differentiate between healthy and unhealthy tissue. It just goes after everything. So it's a race to kill the cancer before it kills you, basically. And I was in the middle of this second part of chemo where I was slowly losing like brain function. I was getting chemo rages and I was disconnecting from my body because it just hurt. And then I was having very severe nerve damage in my hands and feet. And as a person who expresses their lives through dance, it was hard for me to even move, forget about dance. And I remember sitting on the couch with my husband saying, I don't know if I can do this anymore. I have 6 more cycles of chemo, and I was in the middle of a really bad bout of bronchitis, so I couldn't even really breathe. And I just was really honest. And we've been married quite a number of years, and our children were about 14. And I just started crying and saying, I can't do this anymore. In that instance, though, it was really important in retrospect, Daniel, that I had gone to a therapist because I really needed someone to talk it out. And my husband froze because this poor man was working a full-time job, going with me to every single chemotherapy and managing our 2 children by himself. He should have been in therapy, but neither one of us were in therapy, right? So the important lesson from this was when you feel like you're at the end, the most important thing is for you to seek help. You cannot do it alone. Don't think you can outthink yourself, outfeel yourself, or out not feel yourself, if that makes sense. I wish I had had the wherewithal, even a friend who was checking in, which I did not have at the time. I wasn't going to therapy. Wasn't even talking about it. You know, there's a study they did where they shut up a bunch of men in a dark room. It was a scientific experiment. And every single man went crazy within 48 hours except for one man. And the only reason that man came out intact was because they observed that he was expressing verbally everything he was doing in the dark. He would say, I'm getting out of bed. I am sitting up. I am blinking, because that verbal use of his voice kept him sane. So when you're in a deep down pit, the worst thing you can do is think, oh, I can do this by myself. I can will myself to get out of this mess. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Me personally, I didn't go to therapy when I went through my struggles. It was 8 surgeries for Crohn's disease. And then, like for me, my therapy was watching baseball games, with being with my family, being with friends. I was fortunate enough to have those, right? I think everybody has their way of solution. Like, for example, my mom went to therapy, and you went to therapy, but not necessarily everybody fits the same rule. So you have to see for yourself if it does. If therapy is good for you, go ahead and do it. Like I tell people, I'm not gonna tell you to that I went to therapy because I did it, right?
Mm.
But I'm not telling you don't go because I didn't. No, if that fits for you, go.
Well,
Go
you had
because
therapy of
for people,
community, Daniel. You had community. You
yeah,
were
that's
very
right.
blessed with family and friends and community and access to the videos of sports, right? And that energetically kept you safe. If someone doesn't have that, if you're really alone, and there are quite a lot of people right now who are alone, even listening to your podcast, and they don't have access to a community. There are usually community facilities that will have free therapy for you, right? So absolutely. Like if you have community, then you're good. If you're someone like I come from an Asian culture where we really don't do therapy. It's actually not approved, right? It's a mark against your family and all the generations before you. It's not a good thing to go to therapy. There's something wrong with you, right? So I like to verbalize that if you have access to it, it can be another tool in your toolkit to keep you safe and help you come out of the grayness that you're stuck in.
No, it is a great tool, and everybody, like I said, it works differently for each one. Maybe it is a book. No, you sing it. I sing in the shower. I have no shame in saying it, but no, everybody is different. So we are expressing here what happened to each one of us, and for you it was therapy. For me, it was having my family, right? So it works different for everybody. And I remember in part of my process, I was like, why is this happening to me? Right? Why is like everything so like why is it only happening to me?
Mm.
You know, the thing I say here is I remember I went to the hospital, right? And then I was having an infusion for iron infusion, right? And I was like, okay, I'm signing in, I put my name, everything went all right. And then, I sign it, put my name. I say I'm here for an iron infusion, and then I saw that people before they were like, "Oh God, chemotherapy, 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 chemotherapy." And I was like, I'm not going through anything. Like they're going through something worse." So that put me in a perspective of saying, you know, yours is not really that bad. So keep going. You know, be on be on your head, be on your head, be there because people are going through something tougher. I don't know what you think about that.
I think it's really important to remind ourselves of how lucky we are. That's always important. And what I discovered, because I'm 57 now and having gone through not just chemo, but like one of my kids having been under suicide watch, and then another one of my kids being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, which is when your pancreas stops making insulin for you, right? And then recently my husband at this recording, I don't know when we're launching live, my husband was in the hospital for the end of October through most of November. And he ended up going in and out of the hospital twice with 2 huge surgeries back to back within 8 days of each other. And so, like, we're very grateful he's alive. And of course, I still have to talk through and have him work through. You feel like, why me? Like, what grand scheme of things did I end up with this card of these things being handed? Not me personally, but my children and my husband. And then me also understanding I was really lucky that I had the type of breast cancer that they had a cure for. Because I have many friends who did not live after they got breast cancer, right? It's that balance, Daniel, you know, that yes, your appointment was the iron deficiency and above you were all the chemotherapies. I can still hold the suffering you went through for all of your surgeries because those are hard. Those were not a walk in the park. I'm sorry. Like you may want to you they may be now, but as a person that has walked hand in hand with many people who have had suffering, the biggest thing I want everyone to hear is that your suffering is real to you. And it's okay to want someone to witness it and then move on beyond that. Of course, you can't live in that suffering because then you don't learn anything from it. It's just sometimes for some of us, we need someone to hold the space and go, yeah, that sucked. That was no walk in the park for you. You know, I'm so sorry that
I
happened,
guarantee that.
right?
I can certainly say that it wasn't a walk in the park. Like now, it's like I joke around my family. I was like, one more, one less. What is it? And then, but I that's joking. But it is important to realize that when you are at rock bottom, and then you are there, like when you don't see a light of day, like you might see the sun, but you're not seeing the light, right? So you're just there by yourself. And it is important for you to realize that that's all gonna be gone, that this is just an experience. I think one of the things you said previously is that sometimes it's just bad timing, being at the wrong place at the wrong time. What I think is it's not being at the wrong place. You're at the place that you should be, right? I believe that you have to go through that for a better version of yourself in the future. If you're going through it, it's not that because you were there. You were meant to be there for you to learn those kind of things. And later you will realize that, okay, this is why I went through it. You're not gonna realize it at the moment. You're gonna realize it in the future when you're gonna see, okay, now I see why I had to went through it. Because I say to people, I am 100% now better than I was when it all started 3 years ago. Right? I'm having this podcast right now, and I think you will say the same thing yourself. Right? If you hadn't gone through your experience, I don't think you could have been able to help your children, your your husband. I think it all goes hand in hand. So I think it's more being realizing that you were meant to be there and that you are meant to learn something in that storm. It's meant for you.
I think you're absolutely right. Sometimes though, it's easier for people to feel like, oh, if I had just listened to my gut instinct and not done that, I could have avoided it. I think for me, it's marrying this awareness that if something happens, was I present when that thing happened to react in the way that would have been in my best interest? Because there are certain things, we're talking a broad generalization. Of course, we're going to learn lessons if we're really aware that things don't always happen to us, they happen for us. When we're in the middle of it, though, it's very hard to have that perspective, or even if it's freshly in the past. It's more with distance, we can see the lessons in it, right?
Correct.
For like when my daughter was self-harming and under suicide watch and in the deep, deep lows, when she was in the middle of it, it was impossible for her to see any lesson in it. Just, it was after 2 years of therapy and she was on a medication and then, a lot of care. We were really lucky she expressed that she was in despair. A lot of us are very silent about it. So part of, for me, always is being able to hold space for someone who can't see the lesson. When you're in the middle of that lesson, or the experience to give you the lesson, the only things that would get through to my daughter would be, if you weren't here, do you know how much suffering it would be for us, the family? Like, do you understand that? Because sometimes she just wanted to stop the pain of being alive or whatever the experience was when you're deep in the middle of it, right? And so for if any of your audience members are in the middle of it and they found this podcast and they're trying to get to the next minute, right? The key point is to remember, you may not see the lesson. It may be impossible to see for you. Know what it would feel like for your community or your family if you weren't here, how painful it would be. It was the only thing that got through to my daughter, honestly, Daniel. My daughter was already like, trigger warning to the audience, like pretty severe self-harm. Bad. Like ideation, making plans type of thing. And the only thing that took her out of this really dark low was reminding her of the pain I would go through, her brother would go through, her father would go through, and that's the only thing that prevented her from relapsing, right? Or um, I started fostering kittens when she was really low, and I would just put the baby kittens on her. She didn't do anything. She just slept for like days and days. And then as she came out of her dark hole, she started helping me with fostering the kittens, and it became she had to be really taking care of herself to be able to be in tune with the kittens. I don't know if you've ever taken care of kittens. Have you, Daniel?
No, I personally would love to have a dog, but my mom doesn't.
Well, we fostered baby kittens, and I specialize in neonatal kittens, the newborn kittens, the ones with their eyes closed. Sometimes I would get them with their umbilical cord still attached. And those baby kittens are very delicate. They're very fragile. They can die within a day. And for me to foster them and then have my daughter taking care of them with me meant that she had to be really present, really taking care of herself before she could help me with the babies. And that was the next step. After she came out of her low, if she couldn't take care of herself, she wasn't allowed to touch a baby kittens. Kind of like you want the dog. And so slowly, she got better and better. And we have a lot of pets at home. And it was always understood if she didn't take care of herself and make sure she was present, she couldn't take care of the pets. And that pulled her out of her own pain, right? And then now she's just like you, Daniel. She knows all her lessons. She can understand it. But in the middle of it, it was impossible to see. And the only thing that could get through to her was to remind her of how much pain the rest of us would be if she wasn't here.
No, that, you know, I personally feel close to that, your story of your daughter. I wouldn't say that I was in the suicide watch, but I was really into, you know, why? Why me? I haven't done anything wrong, right? And for me, it was like I went through one surgery. I had to get up back again. And for me, it was all more for like my family. I was like, I want to have a smile because if I don't, I bring everybody down, right? If I might be dying inside, but if I show, if I don't show a smile, if I don't bring joy to the family, all I'm doing is bringing everybody down. Then later I realized, I'm gonna be an example. I'm gonna be the example not only for my sister, for my family, for my cousins. To if you get knocked down, you can get back up. And for me, it was one surgery. I got out. The next one came. I got out. The next one came. So it was all back to back to back. And honestly, in 2025, we are still in 2025 by the time of this recording. I went through at least 3 surgeries in the span of this year. And it was all, I got back to my everyday life, and then I go back to the hospital, and then everybody back to daily life, and then back to the hospital. And it's hard because you are so used to doing whatever you wanted, right? I wanted to play baseball, right? That was my dream. But with the first surgery, that was knocked down. I haven't played baseball in the past 3 years. So it is something that you have to realize that, yes, and I totally get it. You're not going to realize it in the moment. But for the people in this podcast, I think it's important for them to hear that in the lesson, even though you don't see it right now, you have to believe it is for a reason. That there is something to learn there, right? And then to push to see, because when you're in your darkest moment, that's when you need to push more. That's when you need to ask yourself to push the hardest, because if you don't, you're not gonna see the light of day. If I didn't push myself to bring a smile, to be there for my family, to have time with the family, to make the whatever with the time that I had, do whatever I could. I couldn't do much, but I had to do something. If I didn't do that, I wouldn't get better each single day. When I was in the hospital, they asked me to walk one lap around the hospital floor. When I did, then I came back to the hospital bed. I was really tired, but I needed to go back and not do one, but do 1.5, do two, 2.5, three, because each time you're gonna get better. And then by the time, like couple of weeks, couple of months, I could do anything. right? Because if you stay stuck in the darkness, you're not gonna get out, right? For your daughter, it was the kittens, and it's incredible, right? I think animals. For me, I'm a fan of dogs. Honestly, here I'm not a fan of kittens, but everybody has their opinion, okay? But she saw the light of day with the kittens, and she started to better herself, takes care of the kittens, right? Every took care of herself, and then years later, she sees it, or I don't know how much time it has passed, but time later, she's gonna see, okay, I had to go through that because I had to learn to take care of myself first. For example, that might be a lesson that she learned. But if you're stuck in the middle of the darkness, know that you have to push, because the lessons are not gonna come by itself. Be alone in a room and say to yourself, I know I'm going through this, but I know that I can get out. I believe in God. And for me, if you are there, you are meant, you can get out, but it's for you to decide if you want to or not. And with that in question, I wanted to ask you, what motivated you or what motivated your daughter to come back into the light of day?
Oh, Daniel. Okay, so I can't speak for my daughter, honestly, because that's her own story to tell. For me, it was I have to make the most of the second chance at life because I really could have gotten a cancer that wasn't curable and it wouldn't have mattered what I did. And one of the things that I did during cancer treatment and then post op, post surgery, chemotherapy, radiation, and even during all of those was to move. I use dance as a therapeutic way of healing and reconnecting with my body and being present. When you say you have to push yourself, I hear you have to move. The worst thing is to be very still in your mind, whether you're using your vocal cords and speaking and singing or dancing. On my podcast, I always talk about you're a dancer no matter what you do. Even if you're dancing naked after your shower, you're a dancer because you can move. You have a body, right? It's really important when you're really low to still be moving because things that don't move, they're dead. Even when you're lying still, your cells are vibrating. And to acknowledge that is the key to being able to ride out the darkness. I love the fact that you had community. Even though you couldn't physically do the baseball, you were watching baseball games. Oftentimes, like your brain thinks that you're doing it when you're watching something or you're visualizing in your head. So I've had clients that couldn't do physical things, but they would envision themselves dancing. And for me, this is why I'm still alive, because this message of using dance as a movement and a healing modality is what I'm supposed to be reminding the world of. And that's why I still work and so truth talk to you, Daniel, and to your audience. I am 57 and I still battle with depression, right? I just come up with lots and lots of ways to figure out when I'm starting to take a dive. I have all kinds of things to set off alarms because I'm really good at ignoring my own needs. My whole life, I'm conditioned to take care of everybody else. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a friend, I'm a daughter. And oftentimes, the little girl in me, the little Chen Ying that was born in Taiwan and neglected, needs me to pay attention. So I have all kinds of, like, I have this, which is an Apollo. Okay, that reminds me. I have alarms on my phone to remind me to check in with my body. So this is a lifetime journey of always remembering for self-care first, because that's what's really important. Now, you were younger. Daniel, how old are you now? Am I allowed to
21.
ask that? 21? Okay. All right. So you're on the cusp of this amazing life. You're just getting started. I'm getting started too. I want to live to be 150. 57, I'm only beginning to. So the goal is to really learn to be so in tune mind and body that you're this extra powerful vehicle and you believe in God and so do I, right? So for me, I know that I signed on for a purpose before I was born, and everything that happened to me before today was to equip me with the skills. Before, I really wasn't good with listening. I just wasn't, and I know God talks to me through my body. That's just the way it is. And so the more connected I am with who I am, the stronger I am to do what I'm meant to do. And I love this reminder from you, Daniel, to your audience. Like, even if you're suffering, There's a reason for it. And for me, it was it's equipping me to do what I need to do. I'm gaining skills. I'm gaining skills from this experience. When my son was diagnosed with type 1, I stopped praying. I was so angry, Daniel. Like, how could you do this? Like, my kids are from in vitro fertilization. My husband had cancer. We had to go through IVF. So we're the very first test tube babies, like in a petri jar. We made babies in a jar, And so I was angry. I remember saying to God, you gave me these miracle babies, but why would you give my son this thing he has to battle for his life? And I stopped praying. I was very angry. Then when I got breast cancer in the middle of chemotherapy, I got a message from God. You don't really need this answer. I'm not saying this because you asked, but I feel like this is going to help you with your treatment, is what I was getting this message. Daniel got the type 1 to slow him down. Like, I wasn't supposed to understand this. It was his own experience, my son's journey with God, and getting type 1 with his personal journey, his own suffering he needed to learn skills from. Nothing to do with me, but as his mom, I got the download. It's his journey, not yours. And because I know you're going to be a poo-poo head about this, just so you know, he got it for you to understand, to slow him down. Because my son he's a risk taker. He's the first one to jump off the roof, So this was to slow him down so he could be safe to do what he needed to do in this lifetime. And I was reminded by God in the middle of my chemotherapy all the times that you stayed up thinking you were going to keep him alive, because when you have type 1 as a child, you can die in your sleep. Okay. So I had not slept in years before I got cancer. And I was like, oh, I'm going to keep him up. I'm just not going to sleep. God reminded me, I kept him alive, not you, with you not sleeping. That just brought you to an immune deficiency and you got cancer. I kept him alive, God, not you, Jenny, not his mother. Like, you didn't do nothing. I kept him alive because his time on earth is not done yet. He has things he needs to accomplish. And I was like, oh, okay. That story about how you look behind you in the footprint in the sand, one set versus you with God. And then when it's just one set, it's really God carrying you, not you going by yourself. God never left you. God never left me. Right? So even when we feel alone, that's when you're being carried.
No, I think it is important for example, when each one of us has a cross to carry, but you're not carrying that cross alone. You have someone by your side, and you may not see it because God is not visible. God is not form because he would not be God if he had form. Right? He does these things on purpose. Right? He did mine because I had to learn many things. One of them being the importance of moving. Like you said, for me, it was being at the gym. The gym became like a really important part of my life. That for now, when I don't go, I feel like there's an empty part of my day. Like I didn't do something in that day. So that became one part of the things that I learned. The other things that I learned, for example, is eating right. It is important too. It's not only moving, because you can do so much by moving if you don't eat right. So each cross carries a lesson. And be sure that you're not carrying it by yourself. Because he does things on purpose. And the purpose he has on your life may not seem transparent now. And for me, still not. For me, I still feel like I'm sharing this podcast today, right? And I feel like this is the way that I'm supposed to go. But I say to me, wait a second. You're on the right path, but this is not the way. Right? He might steer you away or steer me away from where you're going. And he's saving you. For me, I think he was saving me from something that I still don't know what it was going to be. Right? But be sure that you're not alone carrying your cross. Everybody has a cross, and be sure to keep going to carry that cross because he's going to be there with you every step along the way. He was there for me, he was there for you, and he will be there for you. Right? That's all going to be fine. All the darkness is going to go away, And be sure that once you're out of the darkness into the light, another storm is gonna come by, and you're gonna be in the gray again. But that means that there's another lesson to be learned, and then it's gonna be stacking up each other. And the lesson you learned before is gonna help you with the one lesson you're gonna keep going now, right? So each one of those lessons is gonna build you into a very different character. For me, I'm a very different character today than it was 3 years ago. And then I'm gonna be a whole lot different 3 years later to 2025, 2028 than in 2025, right? So each lesson is gonna build you up, and which each lesson you're gonna be better. So know that it's not the end of the world. Everybody has their struggles, even billionaires. Sometimes people think that those people don't go through their struggles. And no, it's the complete opposite. They might have the money, right? But they might feel empty inside. They may be successful in this life, right? But they're not successful. And I say this, I prefer to be successful in the book of God than in the book of life. I don't want. If I get it, that's fine. But I don't want the millionaire house. I prefer, right, to help people because I have a smile on my face when I help people. That's me. And that makes me happy. Find what makes you happy and make sure that aligns with what God wants from you. Because if that doesn't align, be sure that God is going to steer you away in somehow, in some way. And if you don't believe in God, that's fine. That's fine. Our goal here is not to push you into believing in God. Our goal here is to spread out our experiences. And if you feel that you want to connect to God, great, amazing. I'm accomplishing two things at the same time, right? I'm trying to bring everyone closer together to God because, that is what makes us, unique, right? Believing in a God, because people argue, why is there a God if there's wrong, evil in the world? And people get the definition of evil wrong. Evil does not exist. Evil is a lack of good that isn't there. So if we realize that and you come to God or you don't and you want to keep going and somehow in some way he's going to steer you because he's incredible, and I think there's nothing to lose. If you want to try it out. If you don't, that's great. It all goes along. And I think Jenny and I here have spread our experiences, and I hope that with each word that comes out of here, you learn something. And going to the next question, I wanted to ask you, Jenny, can you please tell me more about your Spotlight confidence formula?
Oh, it'd be my pleasure to. So it's really understanding and accepting and realizing for me that I'm the star of my own life. And whether or not I'm aware of it, I dictate how I'm treated and received. So you are dictated by how you set it up for yourself. Meaning, I love the reference to, for me anyways, when I was first introduced to God, when I was immigrated to the States from Taiwan, when we were part of a Bible church. And back then it was talking about how special everyone is in the eyes of God. Like every person is a star. And for me, everyone that comes into your influence or into your space, you are still the star, the center of your own life, no matter what. And so, in order to step into that, that means, realizing that you're going to influence how you're treated in a partnership, as a parent, as a child, as a friend. You're setting up the standards of how you're going to be treated or seen by how you perceive yourself and how you will speak about yourself, think about yourself, portray yourself, dress yourself, care for yourself. That will be reflected back. For me, I realize that. So the Spotlight Confidence formula is having people understand that how you're being treated sometimes often is a reflection of how you're treating yourself already internally. For me, also, It was in addition to whether or not you believe in God, we are all connected energetically, especially on a higher level. Everyone is connected. Every country is connected. I know it's a little bit woo-woo. I just have found that. Like you were saying, in the absence of good, evil will exist. Or darkness exists because there's not enough goodness to illuminate it. That happens inside of us. If there's not enough goodness in you, you will allow darkness to come. And I'm not talking about darkness like when I'm sleeping and it has to be dark. We're talking about the low stuff, the low vibrations, the low thoughts, the why me starts to take over. And with the motion that I was hearing, to tie into the very beginning when you're saying, always be able to push yourself. And I was relating that to movement, right? Anytime you're feeling low, remember that you're in charge of your spotlight. Always. There's no one else that can control it. And the second thing for me was, if you're not taking care of yourself, similar to what you were saying, Daniel, about how to eat correctly, how to rest correctly, your body is the only thing that will be with you for all of your life. Nobody else, not your mother, your father, your sibling, a teacher. Your body that you're physically in is the only thing that was with you when you were born, even before you were born, and will be with you until the day you die. So the relationship with your body should be number one. And that's also, for me, how God talks to me. Through my body, through my gut, through my prayer, through my awareness of everyone around me and how energetically we're all connected. There are schools of thought that say you can affect the energy of a room by how positive a beacon you are when you walk in. And in the same way, you can let other people affect you with their negativity if you're not strong enough in your own light. So that's what the Spotlight Confidence formula does for my clients.
Oh, that's good, and I think it's important to touch on the factor that we need to be aware of the people that surround us. Either they can be a positive influence or they can be a negative one. So we have to be careful what do we let each other, like, if we let negative thoughts come into our heads, everything is gonna go around. You're gonna be on a loop thinking of things. But if you have positive influence, that brings you up. You have to be around around friends that take out the best of you. If those friends don't bring out the best of you, and what they do is separate you from who you are, those are not true friends. I'm fortunate enough to have incredible friends, and they have been with me the entire 3 years of this process. And being able to have those friends that they are a positive influence. I have one of my friends taught me how to eat better, what to look in the ingredients. I have friends that go to the gym with me, and then we seek out each other. And if we are not doing something, I have friends that we learn a new language, right? And each one of those friends, they can be a positive influence. So you have to manage who is a friend that does not provide to you a positive influence. And it is hard because you might have to separate yourself from that person. Because if you keep going with that person, you're gonna stay there or worse, go down a slippery slope with that person. Because they might lead you away from your true friends. Those friends that are right here that are providing you with a positive influence, with one negative influence, you're going to get further and further away. That can happen, but it's for you to decide if you want it to affect it or not. So I prefer to have those friends. I don't have 100 friends. I have 7 friends. 7. If I'm missing one, I'm sorry. But uh, I have those friends that I truly care for. And everyone should do the same. Right? It is on us to know, okay, they are providing us with a positive influence. And sometimes even in our own family. If I'm doing the podcast, someone can say to me, hey, I don't think you should do this. You shouldn't do this because of this or because of that. Hear them out, right? Don't be a hard ass. Hear them out, but it's on you to decide, right? If you want to continue on with the podcast or continue on with your project, anything. So it is important for, like you said, realize who's around us and be that positive energy in the room. Be that person that when you come into the room, people are happy to see you, right? People are happy to see because they know what is coming, right? They know that joy is coming. If you come into the room with a sad face and your head bent down, do you think people will want you in the room? No. No, you have to be positive and joyful, right? And even now in the time of this filming, hey, this is Christmas. Hey, we have to be joyful. Bring that joy into the room. And with that, Jenny, I wanted to ask you, what was the biggest takeaway in your journey?
Ooh, ooh, that's a good question, Daniel. My biggest takeaway is that I, Jenny C. Cohen, I am a worthy person to be able to ask for joy, peace, and also worthy of love. Now, you would think, well, Jenny, you're married how many years and you have kids and you're beloved by your parents. Like, why would you not automatically feel that? Believe it or not, majority of people don't believe that this is a birthright. We don't have that. And I think that if I had learned this lesson earlier, my lows would have been less gray. It would have been a little bit less painful, you know? I know that in retrospect, I slowly had to learn them. I just would have loved to learn them sooner so I could do more of what I'm meant to do. The more we resist the lessons, sometimes they'll keep repeating until you learn that you are worthy. It's your birthright to be loved, feel joy, and actually have peace when you need to rest. Because oftentimes we overwork ourselves thinking we just have to keep proving that we're worthy, but you were born with that worthiness, right? And oftentimes, okay, so let me get really woo woo out, Daniel. Sorry, it's really important.
The
Sometimes,
stage is yours.
yeah, right? Sometimes you're the generation that's supposed to heal lessons that weren't learned by the generations before. All right? Sometimes some of the things you're suffering from is because you inherited patterns or generations of something that you are now aware of that you need to heal. And I promise it ripples backwards to generations before. So hold on to that. Sometimes the why isn't directly related to you, but you're the one who's going to solve it and heal it in you, and then through you ripple out to everyone around you.
No, that's incredible. I think, I'm gonna ask the question, but I think you hit it right away. So before we go, what would you like to leave for the person hearing this podcast?
Learn to play more. And when I say play, not play to win anything, just play to revel in being alive. I had to learn to play. Would you believe that, Daniel? I never learned to play as a child. I didn't play. I just took care of my little brother. And then before that, because I was a girl born into a country they didn't value girls, I was not ever really understanding how lovely I was as a child. So no matter what your age, learn to play so you can remember the joy of being alive, even when you're feeling like you don't know why you're suffering. That's really important. That's part of that balance of being able to feel like, oh, this really sucks. And I can still play and feel joy.
Oh, thank you so much for those words. And I think a lot of people will learn from this podcast, from your experience, from my experience. I think there's a lot to learn. And I think people will realize that the important thing here is to realize that you can get out. That's why the podcast is called Out of the Gray. Right? You were inside the gray, now we're out. And what we're trying to do is spread what worked for us. And with each guest that I bring into the podcast, it's a different experience. So know that you can get out. Yet you are not alone. This is a community built for you. This is not built for me, not built for Jenny. This is a community built for you. If you have any questions, you can ask Jenny or I. Follow us on our social medias and DM us, email us, comment on this podcast. But because we would love to help anyone out, right? And like I said, you're not alone. Learned that when you are at the darkest, that's when you need to push out the fullest. That's when you need to bring your energy out. Be positive. Know that you can get out because that's the important thing here. And I would love to, end the podcast by saying, please follow Jenny on any platform. Jenny, can you please tell the people where they can find you?
Thank you so much, Daniel. You can find me under Jenny C. Cohen, Cohen. I'm everywhere under that name, so you can find me. I'm also on YouTube under the Dance to Heal podcast channel. And really, truly just know that you really are loved and you are seen. And if you want to move with me, you can go to two different places. You can go to Dance and Heal, which is dance, DanceHeal.com, or go to my newest offer starting in January, which is called movetobloom.com.
Well, people, you now heard where you can find Jenny. You can find me at the Lugo official, DLUGO official, at Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share this podcast with the people that you love, with the people that you think will like to hear this message. Thank you so much for hearing this podcast. God bless you all. And in this time of the recording, Merry Christmas. And thank you so much. Bye bye.